into the story about Russia and Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, it was just a couple of weeks ago where Zelenskyy and Putin were actually engaging in some type of peace talks. It's not to say it was going to fix everything, but they were engaging in peace talks. Now, this is after Donald Trump had reached out to Zelenskyy and they had a chat. Next thing I know, I see this video of Zelenskyy saying too many people are dying in Ukraine. We need to move towards some type of peace negotiation. So maybe Donald Trump is correct when he says that if he was still president, this conflict wouldn't have happened. Maybe he's correct about that. That being said, somehow it went from peace talks to Ukraine now invading Russia. It's just insane how this went from peace talks to this type of action here. Let's get started here with this clip from Fox News.
Yeah, Eric, the world is watching Ukraine as well, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is acknowledging for the first time that his forces have pushed into Russia's southern Kursk region. It's Ukraine's biggest incursion into Russia so far. Zelenskyy says it follows hundreds of Russian attacks from Kursk this summer, and now Moscow is threatening to retaliate. Stephanie Bennett is live in London with the very latest. Stephanie.
Hey, Arthel. Yeah.
So I just want to add really quick here. I thought it was interesting. You know, Zelenskyy is not denying this, ladies and gentlemen. He is admitting to doing it. So
the back and forth continues. President Zelenskyy said that they deserved a fair response after claiming Russia had sent more than 2,000 airstrikes from the Kursk region over into Ukraine this summer alone. But first, within the last hour, President Zelenskyy also posting on X saying Russian forces have lit a fire at a nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine. So we're keeping an eye on that. But Ukraine's
pause for a second. So Zelenskyy is claiming that this is in response to attacks from Russia over the summer. But it was literally just like a week or so ago where there were peace talks. So how do you go from peace talks to, okay, I think I want to retaliate now? I don't understand this at all. And to me, it just seems like, again, like, I wonder if Zelenskyy was pushed by outside forces being the U.S. government, being NATO, being the CIA, you know, things like that, because it doesn't make any sense. They were getting closer to getting this resolved. And now here we are.
President, as we know, for the first time confirming today that his forces are engaged in that major cross-border offensive into Russia's Kursk region, where Russia appeared to be caught off guard by the surprise attack earlier this week. Fighting there is now heading into its sixth day. Reports suggest more than 6,000 Ukrainian troops may have crossed that border. In a move that further indicates Russia's military is struggling, Moscow has declared a state of emergency in the Kursk region and has evacuated 76,000 civilians.
So Russia was surprised. Well, I would be surprised, too, if we were just talking about peace. We were just talking about the possibility of peace. I would be surprised, too, if you know, that's just like, let's say you had a feud with like your best friend and you guys have been fighting for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you know, you guys decide, you know what, let's go ahead and just hash this out and let's just try to like rekindle or just have some peace. Then the next thing you know, like your best friend goes and sleeps with your boyfriend. You know, it's something like that. It doesn't make any sense. So, of course, Russia was surprised.
Ukraine is proving that it can indeed restore justice and ensure the necessary pressure on the aggressor.
Russia has also imposed a sweeping security regime, launching a counterterrorism operation, allowing.
And we have to stop it there because you can't see the rest of it. But yeah, there is Zelenskyy there, willing to just basically, he's taking responsibility for it. He's not trying to say he wasn't involved in this. He's claiming the responsibility. But Zelenskyy, you have some questions to answer. And honestly, the State Department should be pushing Zelenskyy on this, but they're not going to because they just want to take Russia down. The State Department should be asking Zelenskyy, how did you go from peace talks, negotiations into, yeah, I'm just going to do a sneak attack, son? How did you go from that to this, from 1 to 10, like so quickly? So quickly. And I got to tell you, Vladimir Putin is not happy about this, of course, as you can imagine. He does have some things to say, and I want to show you what he is saying here, Because now, and shout out to Hotspot for this one, Putin says there is nothing to negotiate with Kyiv anymore. Nothing. Who seek to attack civilians and nuclear power facilities. How do you negotiate with terrorists? To all appearances, the enemy seeks to improve its negotiating positions in the future. But what kind of negotiations can we even talk about with people who indiscriminately attack civilians? Let's go into this video here.
It seems obvious right now why the Kyiv regime refused our proposals to go back to a peaceful resolution. And just also why they denied any peaceful intermediaries from engaging in this conversation. The Ukrainian government is following the will of the West and its masters in the West. It's the West that's fighting us using the hands of the Ukrainians. They're trying to improve their negotiating positions in the.
So this is Vladimir Putin basically saying that even though it's Ukraine on the battlefield, it's actually the West that's behind it, that's doing the fighting, trying to push Russia, trying to cripple Russia. You know, the sanctions didn't work against Russia. Bombing the Nord Stream 2 pipeline didn't work against Russia. Russia is still prevailing. And I don't think the U.S. government likes that. Well, the West in general. And I know NATO sure as hell doesn't like that. You know, this is why some of us call for an anti-war movement. And it's really weird to me how some people saw that as a bad thing. Like, when you have the opportunity to have peace and you agree to working towards peace, and then you do a sneak move behind your opponent's back, that's cowardly. That's really cowardly. And that's what Zelenskyy did. They don't want any peace. Instead, they want to push us closer and closer to World War III. Let's think about what's happening right now. You have Russia, this war with Russia and Ukraine, which was almost going to be wrapped up if they would agree to the peace negotiations. You have a regional war brewing in the Middle East. Israel and Gaza, Israel and Hezbollah, Israel and Iran. You have that brewing in the Middle East. And who do you think, what do people think is going to happen here, folks? Because the reality is, I don't think Russia's going to help out Israel. If anything, Russia's probably going to help out Iran. Think about these things. All of this happened under the Biden administration. Now, I have many things to criticize Trump's administration for, and I've done it over and over again. But I will say this. We did not have these issues, these two particular issues under Trump's presidency. Things have just gotten out of control. And as much as the State Department says that they do not want a World War III, or they do not want any escalation of nuclear arms, they're not really trying to do their best to stop it either.
Future, but what negotiations could we even talk about with people who are attacking civilian infrastructure, or trying to create threats for nuclear industry facilities? What is there to even talk about with them?
So you're hearing it right there from Vladimir Putin yourself, guys. He said, what is there to even talk about with them? This is a done deal. This is a wrap. So now we're looking at the possibility of Russia, seriously trying to take all of Ukraine. We're going to get into that in just a second, but you can see this is the nuclear power plant. I want to bring this up on the screen here. Here is the nuclear power plant in Ukraine on fire. And Zelenskyy is blaming Russia for that attack there. I mean, this is just, there's no good that can come from this for Ukraine. I told you guys already, they're already running out of men. They're pulling guys off the street to go fight. For what? It's obvious that they cannot beat Russia. This was a fool's errand. It really was. Now, Nico is going to point out something here that I think people need to listen to. Shout out to Nico and Nick for doing the hotspot vids because they're really killing it here. Russia is likely to completely take over all of Ukraine after learning that NATO powers were directly involved in Ukraine's invasion of Russia territory. Like I said, why would you go from peace talks to all of a sudden escalation again? Listen to this.
Vladimir Putin has said that's it. There is no negotiating with Ukraine. They're in it for the long haul, and you can thank the West for that. Just the other day, Russia had to declare a state of emergency in the Kursk region after Ukraine invaded the Russian territory. Now, the White House in the United States, of course, is claiming that they had no prior knowledge of the attack and would communicate with Kiev to figure out what's going on. But I'm here to tell you that's bullshit because Zelenskyy has spent the last couple of months begging the United States and the West to allow them to use their weapons to attack Russian territory. And then the Biden administration went on to give Ukraine the permission that they requested. And it's now being reported that 4 mercenaries from both France and Poland, 2 NATO powers, were involved in the incursions against Kursk, putting the final nail in the coffin of maybe having peace between Russia and Ukraine anytime soon. Many thought that perhaps Vladimir Putin would hold off until this election was finished because Trump seemed to be aiming towards trying to organize peace between Russia and Ukraine. But now, because of Ukraine's brash actions and the West's influence, looks like he's taking it out of everyone else's hands. And there may not be a Ukraine.
This is very important for people to hear because now if you thought Putin was angry before, he's about to go DEFCON 3. Because how dare, like, I just don't get it again unless, like I said, NATO pushing this, the West pushing this, NATO steps in and says, oh, no, you can't have no peace. Oh, no peace here. We're not doing no peace. We are going to keep this ball. What are you doing? What do you think you're doing here? This is not going to happen, right? So that's how we end up with this situation again. Like, you cannot sit up here and convince me that Zelenskyy thought of doing this all on his own. You can't convince me. So here we go with more war. Now, for the people who tell me that they care so much about the Ukrainian people, if that is the case, then you would want this war to stop. You would be calling for an end to this war because more Ukrainians are dying. What happens when they run out of Ukrainians to put into the Ukrainian armies? What happens? I bet you Zelenskyy will run away. When all this is said and done, I bet you Zelenskyy will run off, move to another country somewhere, and that'll be the last you ever heard of him.
The end of this. Putin said that it seems obvious now why Ukraine has been refusing to engage with any attempts with Russia as they've offered more chances to resolve things peacefully. And he says it's because their Western masters won't allow them to, and they're trying to gain a better position to negotiate. But how can you negotiate with people who are targeting purposely civilian infrastructure? A lot of people are confused as to how this could possibly gain Ukraine a strategic advantage, leaving and diverting sources from their own territory to attack Russian territory when the whole goal is supposedly to defend themselves. Before Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said that their goal was to get Russia to divert resources from Ukraine to defend themselves, but principally it was to prove to the West that Ukraine can still fight. And as a result, he said that Russia should expand its war aims to take all of Ukraine.
All of Ukraine. All of it. And honestly, at this point, can you be angry? Can you be angry at Russia at this point after what just happened? Ay.
Of which, by the way, Ukraine already has yielded 18% of its territory to Russia. A lot of people thought that maybe this election could change the outcome of this war and, stop allowing Ukrainians to be sent to the meat grinder to beat a country that they could never stand a chance against. But it looks like because of the actions of the West, Putin in Russia is taking this war out of their hands, and he's handling it his way now. So don't be surprised in a couple of years if you type in Ukraine to your Google Maps and all that pops up is Russia, because this ain't gonna end well for them. This is looking like another failure by another NATO proxy, adding to the whole list of L's NATO has taken over the last couple of years.
And all I can think about is all of the people that have died. All of the people that have died because of this proxy war. Knowing damn well they knew from the very beginning, NATO and the US government knew from the very beginning that Ukraine could not beat Russia. This was a death sentence. That would be like asking me to try to fight Hulk Hogan. Do I look like I can beat Hulk Hogan? No. Yes, he's older, but I still couldn't beat Hulk Hogan. So these are the things that we have to pay attention to, folks. The lives that have been lost, because corporate media is going to paint this in such a way like that Vladimir Putin is a dictator, is a brutal person, and that's all you should focus on. No, I'm telling you, you need to focus on the fact that NATO, they were the ones that provoked this. Now, I will say, and even Gray Zone has admitted this, that Russia was wrong to invade. But at the same time, Russia was provoked because NATO continued to expand and closer to Russia, which was not supposed to happen after the fall of the Berlin Wall. But they were doing it anyway. And I don't buy this stuff about, oh, they're going after Russia because dictator and Putin's bad, No, I think they're going after Russia because it's another country that is taking care of their people. And because it's another country that's doing well economically, so well economically that the sanctions put on them from the US government did not destroy them. They are still living fine. For all the people who continue to tell me that they love free market capitalism and capitalism is the way. You ever notice a lot of times those people seem to be fine with that as long as it's the US that is on top. But the moment there are other countries that start to rise economically and starts to become a competitor in that capitalist system, all of a sudden it's no, we have to stop them. So what they'll do oftentimes is that they'll implement coups. They'll do things to agitate against their borders, causing them to react. So two things can be true at once, folks. Yes, it can be true that Russia was wrong to invade, but it can also be true that Russia was provoked. And this is how people need to start looking at things. Stop saying it's one way or the other way. Sometimes two things are true at the same time. But one thing I think we can all agree to is the fact that NATO and the US government, they want to continue to feed that war machine over and over again. Because you don't go from peace talks to, okay, we're just going to bomb you again. It's a mess.